Hi, I'm Rick Jansen, and this is my fly tying channel. You know, someone asked me recently what pattern I would be lost without in my fly box. My answer was immediate: the halfback nymph. Let's take a look today at this traditional BC fly. Welcome to my fly bench. You know, the halfback nymph is such a suggestive pattern. It can represent many different things. In sizes 14 and down, it can often represent a chironomid nymph. In 10s and 12s, it can be a mayfly or a shrimp. And in larger sizes, it can even represent a dragonfly nymph. It is a great searching pattern. So let's take a look at the materials you're going to need to tie this fly. So into my vise, I have a Togen's number 12 2x long curved nymph hook. To that I have attached my 6/0 black tying thread to the head of the fly. And the first order of business is to wrap some lead wire at the thorax area. Now there's two reasons I use lead wire. One is obviously to sink the fly a little more quickly into the strike zone, as this fly is tied of fairly light materials, and on its own would take quite a while for it to reach the strike zone often if you're fishing more than 15 feet of water. So I like to aid in getting that fly down there. And I do fish it on a full sink line, but a very light fly will often not sink at the rate of the line speed. It will sink slower than that and be higher up than your actual line. Adding a bit of lead to it helps it get down at the line level or below. Now I'll wrap a few wraps of lead wire on there, and it doesn't need too much. And the other reason I put the lead wire on is to widen the thorax region of the fly here. I want a little bulkier at the front than the abdomen area of the fly, and this aids in making that profile look natural. I'll bring the thread to the front again and then back over those lead coils, securing it in place so it's not going to move. We bring our thread back now to just behind the point of the hook, and to find out when I've got it right, I'll just let the bobbin dangle. I see I'm short of where I want to be, so I wrap a few more threads going back. I'm now at the point, another wrap or two, and we're now behind the point of the hook. Our tail is pheasant rump, and it's pheasant rump feather. It's from a cape that I've harvested of a pheasant, and I want to get a fairly sparse tail in there. Not too many fibers, 4, 5, 6 will do. You want a sparse tail is better, something light, and get a cluster of them there. And now I will tie those in about 1/3 of the hook length. There is fairly short tail as well. Don't want it to be sticking out too far beyond the body of the fly. Want to keep this tail short on this pattern. That's the traditional look. So we'll get that in there, get a couple of wraps to secure it in place, and we'll cut off the tag ends of that pheasant rump. There we go. And the thorax or abdomen region of the fly will be peacock herl, and we'll get that tied in there. Couple of loose loops to get it secured and bring it back to our tail, and then cut off our tag end. Then we'll bring our thread forward to the lead, or just behind the lead, a little more than halfway up the hook there. And before we wrap that peacock herl forward, because it's quite fragile, we're going to brush up the shank of the hook in these threads with super glue, brushable super glue, to help strengthen that fly, the peacock herl. And now we wrap that forward over the wet super glue. Give that a series of nice wraps. They're a very buggy looking material. This is just the most amazing natural material I've ever used in fly tying. That's why it shows up in so many flies. We secure that in place, a couple of wraps behind, a couple in front, and snip off the tag end. Now we're using pheasant rump again, but you'll notice that these fibers, I've chosen a feather with much longer fibers. I want these to be longer for the shellback because they are also going to form the beard of the fly. So they're going to cover the abdomen area of the fly and then swing back down under to form the legs as a beard. So I'm going to choose a fairly thick cluster of these. This you want much thicker than the tail. I'll choose a ½ inch or more, or nearly a ½ inch, more than a quarter of an inch for sure, and coming up on a ½ inch of these fibers, and pluck those off. And then I measure them for length. I want them to look longer than the tail, okay, because they do have to come back around, and we'll secure those in place and cut off that fuzzy tag end there so it doesn't interfere the building up of our thorax area of the fly. Now that we've got those secured, we're going to go with peacock herl again for the thorax, and this time we're going with 3 fibers, 3 or 4. We like to build up a fairly wide, husky looking thorax to this fly, and we'll get those tied in place, cut off the tag ends. Again, giving the body of the fly a little touch of super glue. Bring our thread forward first. Getting ahead of myself there. A touch of super glue up here to strengthen that peacock herl, as it's, again, a fragile material, easily broken with fish teeth. Now we wrap that up, and you can see we're getting some bulk there. This is going to really widen that front of the fly. And we get it up to our thread. Don't worry about missing a strand or two. You can always cut those off later. I'll wrap that in place. I'll bring this one forward. Try to catch it, bring it forward. Also wrap it into place. Give that some secure wraps there. Cut off the tag ends. Now we bring our shellback forward, covering the back of the fly, and give it 2 solid wraps in here to secure it in place. And when it's in place, I'll hold it here and pull these ends to try to flatten it. I don't want a gap showing between the peacock herl and the shellback. I want it to be look continuous and attached. So I make sure it's thoroughly tightened down there. Now I stand above the fly, wetting my fingertips. I'll divide these tips of this pheasant rump in 2, as close as I can to 2 pieces. As I get that pulled back and down, now they're outsplayed. I use the wetted tips of my left hand and pull those fibers back and down, and then form my thread head. Conical head here, and we've got ourselves a halfback fly, looking fairly balanced and very attractive. Now a touch of super glue to the thread to help secure our head in place. A couple of wraps of that, and whip finish to complete our fly. My favorite way to fish this fly is to anchor at the edge of a shoal or drop off. Full sinking line, type 3 or 4, or heavier if you need it for the depth of water. Cast it out over the deep water, let that sink over the drop off, and then twitch it back up the drop off in 3 to 4 inch strip retrieves. If there's any fish cruising there, believe me, some of them will be tempted to take this fly, and when you've got one fish and you can pump its stomach, you can ascertain what it is they're actually after. But I often stick with this fly if it's working. Why change? Why why argue with success? So tight lines out there, good luck, and thank you for watching.